Hey everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Good to see you all again. I hope you guys can hear me. Hi Armando. Hi Shima. Hi Mustafa. Hello. I hope my voice is okay as well, and that you can all hear me clearly. Awesome. Cool. Great to see you guys come in again. Hello. Yes, continue sending your greetings in the chat, GM. I'm just inviting today's speaker to the stage. Really interesting topic today. We're going to be learning about how to build components on the BOS. I think if you guys were here for the introductory educate session, we talked a little bit about what the BOS was and kind of the general structure of it and what to expect. Hi, Guillermo. How are you?
Hi, hello everyone.
Awesome. Cool. I guess we can kind of get started. Just before we do, I want to go through my quick introductory phrase again for the recording. Cool. So, hi everyone, welcome back to the second session of the Near Horizon Educate program. So, we're super excited to have you guys back. We've got Guillermo today to talk about building components on the BOS. But yeah, I won't say any more than that. Guillermo, please take the stage.
Sure. Okay, let me share my screen. So, first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Guillermo. I'm part of the developer relations team at Pagoda. And I'm super excited today to be here telling you how to, or teaching you how to build components on the BOS, the blockchain operating system. But maybe first, it will be interesting to just remind everyone, right, what is the BOS, right? Like, so the whole idea of the BOS is that it's this place where you can create and discover open web experiences that are compatible with any blockchain. So the BOS is actually here to solve a couple of problems, right? To solve problems from Web 2, Web 3, and actually act as a bridge between those. So in Web 2, developing an application is not hard per se, right? Like the technology has advanced a lot. But we still have some inconveniences, like whenever we finish building the app, but then we want to host it somewhere, then you have to go figure out where your application is compatible with what type of hosting and which server. And so that's still not completely resolved. It's simpler than before, but it's still not completely resolved. And something that is actually more important, or at least I find it more and more complicated, is that whenever you are trying to handle assets, that can get very complicated because, right, like now you are having assets of your users, and that gets scary very fast, right? Especially when you are doing something for real. And I see a question of what BOS stands for. BOS is the blockchain operating system. So yeah, whenever you're handling assets, that gets scary, right? And also, if you already build some blockchain application, you already have your smart contract, or there's like just a Web3 app that you want to interact with, making the integration gets complicated because you will have to use different frameworks for different blockchains, right? And now imagine that you don't have that, you're not in Web 2, you're actually in Web 3. Well, then you have the problem that you build an application and, like you maybe need to build it for different, for different blockchains. There's a huge fragmentation in the ecosystem. There's a lot of people, like a couple of people in here and a couple of people in there. And then also this makes it very hard to, your app to be discovered and also to onboard users because maybe, for one place you need one specific wallet and for another place you need another wallet. And then you also need to be very mindful of all of this. So BOS, the blockchain operating system, is here to basically try to bridge between these two worlds while meanwhile solving those problems. So blockchain and the BOS already handle FT and FTN assets. So if you have to handle assets of your users, don't worry. That's already will be given for you. And if your application is actually, across multiple blockchains, well, it's very simple because now the BOS will allow you to connect to your application. It doesn't matter if it is in Ethereum or in Matic or if it is in Near. And distributing your app, like hosting it, it's completely, we're going to see it like now in some minutes, but that is already solved by the BOS. And onboarding users is very simple because you can actually make the users only log in using their email, and that's it. That's all they need to, like pass that first line of like, okay, I want to start using your application. So there. Until now, whenever you wanted to build like a decentralized app, whatever, basically what you will do is you will just develop your front end, and basically the source code of your front end is going to be somewhere in a Web2 host, like in a web hosting. And then the rest part, the data part of your decentralized application was going to be in some blockchain, right? Now, in the BOS, we do things a little bit different in the blockchain operating system. So in order to create your decentralized application, you will start by writing a small application using React, using JSX. So you would just be writing there like a mixture between HTML and JavaScript, right? And then you will publish that code as a component on the near blockchain. The code will go and be stored in the blockchain itself. And what happens with this is that now you will join a community of people collaborating components into the blockchain. And in order to create your dApp, your decentralized application, the only thing you need to do is basically take that specific component, and you can also compose it with other components. So now not only your small piece of application, your component is stored in the blockchain, but also many different parts are stored, and you just compose them in order to create a decentralized app. So the BOS, the blockchain operating system, uses or leverages this idea of decentralized composable frontends. So right now we have more than 4,400 components. I think we already passed the 5,000s by today. And there are about like 134 applications that also live there. And all of their data and all of their code is stored in blockchain. And all of these components are actually ready to fork and compose. So another advantage that is very good is that the BOS is blockchain agnostic, in the sense that you build your application, and now your application will be able to talk with any blockchain, right? So that can be Near or other EVM supported blockchains. So right now, for example, out of the box, you can interact with Near, with Ethereum, with Matic, Gnosis, and we're adding more every single day. So with that being said, let's actually go and see how we can build something. So to start building on the BOS, you will go to near.org/sandbox. So it's near.org/sandbox. And you will be welcome with this screen. If it is actually like the first time you go here, which maybe it will be for many of you, I will actually recommend you to go and follow the Getting Started guided tutorial, which will just show you the different buttons in the interface, and like will guide you on a few little steps just so you get familiarized with the UI. In my case, I will go directly to create a new component so I can show you how we can code things. So I'm going to click on create a new component, and you will see that I'm now in this online IDE, where on this side it says return hello world. So we have a piece of JSX. And here it's in white until I press render preview, where now the component is actually rendered for us. And it says hello world. I could change this to howdy world, right? And render it again. And we can see that the component is being rendered. Now, what we have here is an editor that allows us to write JSX, and this is how actually we're going to be creating our component. So one of the things that we can do, for example, is already start changing this code and say like, okay, I'm going to actually write a little bit of a more complex application, which since this is HTML, well, let's just first transform this into a title, right? Like howdy world, and now this is going to be, right? And now something that we can do is simply create a container, right? Where we just put a nice message for the world. Like, we are so happy that you are here, right? And now I can render it, and we can see the preview. Something that you might have noticed is that I'm actually using like a class, and this comes from Bootstrap 5.0. So for those of you who don't know, Bootstrap is just a library that allows you to stylize your different components. So your different divs inside of your HTML. And that's very useful because now we can just literally leverage it and start building things much more simpler. Now, besides just writing code, right, since this is JSX, we can actually do some other things. For example, we can have inputs for our component. So if I say const greeting, and here I say props.greeting, right, and now I change this, again, it's JSX, so I can just transform this into a variable. Right now, you will see that, since I had there, like it just says world, right? There's no greeting. So I can just come to my props, and as you saw before, I can do greeting, and here I say hello. Now I'm just testing how my application is going to react when someone puts inside the input of hello, right? This could be anything, hello, howdy, or just greetings.
Guillermo, sorry to interrupt. I think we've got some people in the chat asking if you could zoom in or make the font a bit bigger.
Sure. So as you can see, it can get any type of input. And something else that an application has, since this is a React application, is a state. So I can, for example, have a name here, and this is going to be Gile, right? And now, instead of saying greetings world, I can just put here state.name, right? And the nice thing of this state is that it will actually be updated on real time, as it happens on any React application. So if, for example, if I have an input, right, of type text, I can say something, for example, such as, I think I changed there, perfect. Input type text, and I say on change, I will want to execute the method that basically takes the event and updates the state, putting the name as the value of the thing that is changing. So I can just change this, and now I can put here Shosh, and it says greeting Shosh, right? And that basically is just a way to showcase that you can have one, a state, two, props that enter into your application. Now, I'm quite happy with my application right now, so I'm just going to give it a name. This is going to be greetings, and I'm going to confirm, and then I'm going to publish it. And you will see that it will appear this window, and it says like, hey, are you trying to save this data? And what this is showing you is that actually the whole code is going into the blockchain. This JSON piece, or like this string as it is, which contains the whole code, is going to be stored in the blockchain. So I'm just going to say yes, save the data. Now just give it a second. And that's it. Greetings is there. Now, something interesting of having components is that, as I said before, you can compose them. So if now I create a new component, which is going to be called, for example, my welcoming page, confirm. Something that I can, if I press here, you will say that it just says hello world. But something that I can do is, again, I'm going to transform it into a more interesting application. And something that I can do here, let me just write like that, so I have space for everything. And now I can say H1, this is my page. I close H1. Perfect. And now this will just show this is my page. And something that I can do is use the widget source. And now I will give the source of the previous component that I created, which in my case is in dev/support.near. So I'm going to say dev/support.near/widget/greetings. And I will render the preview. And you will see that it appeared. But of course, it says Guiche. It doesn't say something Guiche because I did not pass any props. So something that I can do now is just say props equal. Let me put an enter here so we have everything on the screen at the same time. And I think I call it greeting. Yeah, I can say props equal to greeting howdy. I will put that with a capital. And now you can see this is my page, which is this part, but the rest is just the component that I'm bringing. Now, I know that, I know that it's kind of like every time someone gives an example, it's always like hello and hi, and you cannot really see the potential of what's behind, right? So let's just literally just use compose other components just to make this a little bit more interesting. So instead of doing this, I'm gonna now just create like a general container, the class container, just because it's always nice to have a container in your application. And let's make an application that actually has 2 rows, right? 2 columns. So in one of the columns, so I'm gonna just create a row. This is again coming from Bootstrap. I'm not just like inventing it on the air. You can use row and you can use the class column, which is also something that comes from Bootstrap. And here, for example, I'm going to bring a widget that I created before, which is one of my home pages, simpler.near/widget/home page. Now, if I render it, there is an unexpected token because I didn't close it. Perfect. Now, if I render it, you will see that part of my application, one of the columns has just like a little page that I did that right now is looking very cramped because I put the screen very big. So if we actually slow it, if we actually shrink it, you will see that this is how it should look. But in terms of like being more educative, let's bring it back to the big font. And for example, in the other side, in the other column, I can break some other things. For example, I know that there's a widget that I like very much that is basically counting how many wallets are we missing until we hit 1 billion wallets in here. So I'm gonna bring it. It's widget, and this one is called we billion users, right? And I render it, and you see that it automatically appeared there. And now I will actually bring another one that is something more interesting, maybe, that is a widget that someone else created. I did not work on that one, which is Lido. And basically, you can see sadoville.near/Lido. There. Okay, perfect. Let me now again just for the sake of showing this correctly, you can see that now suddenly I have an application where I have a whole home page and 2 different widgets that I just put on the fly, and it took me less than 5 minutes, literally. And this one, for example, you can use it to interact with Ethereum to stake your Ethereum. And here it's just a countdown. And what we're showing here is that this is like a Web 2 homepage. This is just like an interaction between Web 2 and Web 3, because there you are counting, you're actually fetching this widget, or this component is fetching some data from the blockchain. And this one is directly interacting with a blockchain, but with a different one, with Ethereum. But again, you can have other things, like for example, near/widget/nested discussions. And this one takes, you just have to say the identifier of the discussion. So in this case, let's just call it hello and preview. And you can see that now I automatically have an application where people can come and have discussions. Someone can come and say, hello, Encode, how are you doing? Post it, save the data. And now if you look at this, it is actually saving the data on the blockchain. And now if you just give it a second, you will see that it appears. And people can come and reply on here and can like my message. And that was just, again, like 1 minute, I took a component that already exists and used it into my application. Now, there are 2 important things here to be said, right? One is, let me just publish this so it just stays there. One is, okay, how do I know what I can do and what I cannot, right? Like, what if I'm not a developer relations at NIR and I don't know by heart what is possible with this? Well, for that is that we have the documentation. If you go to our docs.near.org/BOS, you will find that we have a whole documentation on what is BOS, how it works, and also which components you can use. And this is actually they are interactive live. So you can come and change things, and you will see that it changed. So you can not only learn, but also, mingle with it to see what happens. And there's a bunch of components that you have available. For example, you can readily upload files. You can upload images and see them. You can just have markdown and infinite scroll and overlay triggers, etc., etc. So this one is actually very fun. Also, it allows you to choose things, and then you see it's like a very simple user interface. So go again to docs.near.org/BOS, and there you will have all of the information that you need. And if there's something missing, you can just ping us with this button right here that says feedback. And if you go through it, we actually read it. So we encourage you to use it. There will be someone there reading what you say. So that's for what you can use. But then what components can you actually, how did I know about this one? Or how do I knew about the component from Savodil? And the answer is here. You have discover components. And here you will have all of the components that are in near, and you can start searching. For example, if I was interested in Lido, I can search for Lido and see the different components that people has created. I can even more view details of them, and I can see their code. I can fork them. So if I want to have my own version, I can just click there, and I will do it in 1 second, but I can just click there, and it will take me to modify it. Or I can view the source, and I can even discuss, like saying hey, Sabodil, great job. I will not post it now, just not to bother Sabodil, but this is something that you can have a whole discussion on around the components. And if you just click on fork, you will have the whole component for you to play with it. So again, you go to Discover. In Discover, you have components, and in Discover, you also have applications. But these are applications that are already done. So this is very nice to just come and maybe see what can be done, and even go and see how it is done, because again, you can see the code. And those are full applications. And then you also, again, you have the components, which are the smaller ones. They are also applications, but they solve basically only one problem. So you can come here and find whatever you need. Maybe you need discussions, and then you can check them. We are working on a way to try to punctuate them and differentiate those that are maintained from those that are not. So far, it's a bit of a mess, but that will be changed very soon. So don't worry about it. And yeah, and you can see how everything is implemented. Now, what if you don't like coding online? Because, for example, I don't like coding online. So for that is that we have created the VS Code extension. So for those of you that are not familiarized with VS Code is simply just an IDE that runs in your local computer. And you will need two things here. The first one is the extension that is called BOS. So you just search for BOS and you install this one, the near BOS IDE version 2.1.0, or whichever version that it is right now. And then you will also need, and I will show you now why, the live server. This one is very useful, and I encourage you also to install it, the live server. Now, how does this work? You will basically have here near BOS tab that if you just didn't open anything, it's going to say, please open a folder to start. And then you will just go choose a folder. And that folder, so for example, this is a folder in which I have already been working. That folder will be prepared for you, so you can start building your applications, so you can start building your components locally. So something that you can do is log in and fetch your widgets. That's something that I already did, and that's why I have my dev/support.near widgets here. You can see them, all of them. But then you can also fetch other account widgets. For example, I want all of the widgets from the near account. So that's the account that is called near, right? And then I will click enter, and you will see that all of those widgets are going to start be fetching from the blockchain, and now are going to be living in my computer. Just like the online IDE, you will have the option to preview. So for example, here we just say return hi, and here it says hi. And you will have also, just as before, the same capabilities of, for example, saying page 1, and here I will already skip to greeting and props dot, yeah, there, props dot greeting, and here I will just for now say Guile, but it can also handle the state. And the way that you put the props is you will have props.json, and in order to test it, you can come here and say greeting, it's hello. And now if I come back here, you will say that it says hello, Guile. And if I can change it to test something else. Howdy. Perfect. Now, the main advantage of this is not that, well, one is that you can use VS Code, which sometimes is very helpful because it will tell you like you have a mistake here. And let me see if I can increase font size. No, that's the wrong font size. This one I do not know how to do it. Maybe the same. No. Okay, that seemed to work. Perfect. Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you so much, Mehrab. And so, yeah, what I was saying is like you have the same as before. You also can just have the state.init. In this case, I'm not gonna change it a lot. Name Guile. Let's just stick with that, and I will not create. So here I can put state name, and it says Guile, right? So Shosh. Now it says howdy Shosh. Perfect. But the interesting thing is that in the previous case, when I was building a component and I wanted to use it in another component, I had to publish it, right? So I had to make it go into the blockchain. But here, it's not necessary because VS Code understands what widgets you have on your computer. So if I now just create a hello encode JSX, and I actually just come and say return hello encode. Perfect. We would see it says hello encode. And if I now just come and create a new file, which is my page.jsx, I can now directly return widget source. And now this is in dev/support.near/widget/ and I call it hello encode, without the /JSX, right? And now, if I try it, well, I will actually add a title here so you see that it's a different one. Hello. So no, this is in my page. And now it's JSX and it's complaining. Perfect. You would say it says my page, and this part, hello encode, is actually coming from my local instance of hello encode. So as you could see, there was no need to publish anything. So this is very useful because then you can literally just test everything. You can build things and just test them without having to, pay any single cent to publish into the blockchain. And something that is also further interesting, and for this I'm just going to change folders to one in which and the one that I actually use for work. So I'm going to go and open the folder, which is widgets. Open. Perfect. And here I want to show you that, let me see where is my, okay, here, perfect. So if you check here, it says that dev/support.near widget hello is not found. It doesn't exist in near.org, right? So it's important to say, if you go to near.org/user/the widget, it will load it. And right now it's telling you this one does not exist. So if I come here now and I create dev support.near new file, and this one is going to be called hello.jsx. Let me remove this like that. And here I'm just going to return hello. Return hello. We test it, it works perfectly. Something that I can do is I go live. And when I click go live, you will see, it's actually not showing it there. Let me bring it to here. You will see that this website will appear. And here I can click on flags.json. I'm going to copy it and come to near.org/flags, and I will paste that here. And basically, what I'm creating now is a bridge between my it's a bridge between my VS Code and the website near.org. Am I still here? Because my can you still hear me and see me? Because
Yes.
perfect. Because I completely lost the. Okay, perfect. Then I'm just gonna see, but I cannot see you anymore. So you can see that it says near.org saved flags. And now if I come back here and I refresh, now it is telling me, hey, I'm loading your components locally. And actually now it finds hello from dev support. So I can come here and just start, working on my component and say hello, props name, and maybe here just have like a nice, I hope you are having a great day. And come back, and now I can see exactly how it will be looking inside of near.org and how it will react to different contexts. Because, for example, now it's saying like hello, and there's nothing, but I know that here it should be the name. So if actually someone accesses it with, in this case, I say name, I think, hello, Guille. Yeah, exactly. Now I can see that if someone will pass the props name, it will react in this way. And it is also very useful for some limitations of the VS Code. One is the small size that the preview has, which many times doesn't allow you to see how it actually will look like in the website. And the other one is that because of limitations of VS Code, this is something that we just cannot, go over. It will not allow you to do some sort of interactions like use applications that use MetaMask, because you just cannot put MetaMask inside of VS Code. So it's very useful to, you come and you code here, and you have all of the advantages of VS Code, and then you come here and you actually check how it's going to look. So it's very, very, very useful. And with that being said, let me think if there is anything else about the code that will be interesting to remark. But that is basically, those are basically the basics of how to create components in the blockchain operating system. Something else that is important maybe to say is that you can actually, once you finish creating and testing everything, you can just click here, and that will take you to the wallet. It's again opening in another window. I don't know why, so I'm just going to copy here and paste. It's going to tell you like, hey, do you want to save this in the blockchain? And you can approve it, right? Because you're the one coding it. So yeah, that's basically how to code. Something else, and I know that this is a lot of information, so this is like the last tip that maybe I will share. Something else that is very important is that generally you will never want to be yourself alone coding in like the components. And for that, it's actually very useful to set up a GitHub repository that works in the following way. different people. So you will have all of your components in here. This is actually also what we do for our components, or how we develop things. We have all of the components inside of a GitHub repository. And then this GitHub repository is configured in such a way that whenever we merge a pull request, that automatically deploys the components into the blockchain. And that's very useful, because then we can all have our VS codes locally testing things. And then we just push something. We create a PR, and once the PR is merged, that is automatically composed into that is automatically published into the blockchain. And yeah, now I remember the one last thing that I wanted to tell you. Something also nice of using VS Code is that you can actually come here and use console log. And when you test something, you will see that it will just give you the logs. So it's very, very, very useful for debugging. And yeah, that's basically the everything that we wanted to show. There are more things, but maybe we don't want to overload you with absolutely all of the information in like just one single day. But go to docs.near.org/boss. There you will find everything that I said and maybe a little bit more. There's only one topic that we are not covering here, because it's actually it would take us a lot of time, and maybe it's nice to have time for questions, which is you actually, besides creating components, because components are whatever appears on this side, right? Like there's this bar up here that has the logo of Near and a search bar and home, discover, etc., etc., etc. There's a bar here. And everything that comes below here is a component. Everything down here is a component. This is a component. Therefore, well, this one no, because it takes you to another website. But this is a whole component. The fact that you can click here is a component. This, by definition, is also a component. You can see that it's all down here. But it's always below this bar, right? And so if you want to change whatever is up here, and also how the website, because at the end of the day, this is just a website, and this website is just a React application. If you want to change how the application reacts when the user behaves in a certain way, you need to use what is called a gateway. So we're not going to talk about gateways now, but I just want you to know that you can create components, and that go here. But if you want to change the whole website and the whole experience of the user, you will need gateways. And when we are not covering now, there is an example on how to do this. So if you go to our near-examples repository in GitHub, you will be able to find it. And I think that we also have some of this information in the documentation. So again, when in doubt, go to the documentation. And that's basically it. So I expect you to go and now and create without limits. And thank you so much for joining and listening.
Thank you so much, Guillermo. I guess we're straight on to questions then, if that's good with you.
Sure, yes.
Amazing. I think we have a bunch in the questions tab. I'm not sure if Josh has answered all of these in the chat, but I think we've got the time to go through them. And if you're happy to look through, we can go and answer them.
Yes, of course.
So are you able to see the questions tab?
Yes, I see that Matthias is right on. Can you discuss a bit about gateways, what they are, how they fit into BOS and its apps components? Yes. Okay, so I was trying to avoid it, but we can actually talk about this. So there's the important thing about gateways is just that it's how the website is, how the rest of the website looks. So for example, like near.org, as you can see, when you are in the home, it's just like this sort of like social media platform, right? And it has a bunch of other ways of navigating the website, right? So this is a website, and that website in particular sometimes renders components. But if you go to another gateway, which is BOSGG, you will find a completely different experience. Now, both of them are gateways in the sense that they can take the code that you wrote, they can take literally this and transform it into a rendered thing on their website, right? So for example, this component, which is onboarder.near/widget/it Denver 2023, all of this lives in the blockchain. And this gateway is just saying like, okay, I'm gonna take that and render it. And around that, I'm gonna create this button, which is home and editor and documentation that takes you somewhere. So that's the difference between a gateway and the components. The gateway is everything that is around the components and is actually the React application that takes the component and renders it for you. And around that, you can create a whole experience. I don't know if that answers your question, Matthias, or if it clarifies any further. So can we use Web2 API services? How we secret API key? That's a great question, actually. And you actually, if I go to the documentation, actually, I'm going to show you something. Billion users. How was it called? Remaining. Let me see if I can find, because there is actually a very nice example. Well, I'm going to search for billion users and hope that this actually shows us some nice component. Billion count. There. 1 billion near users count. So if we look at the code of this, you can see that it's actually using fetch, and it's calling a Web2 API. And the thing is that, as you can see, the API key is exposed. So something that is important is that, in this case, the API of PikeSpeak can say like, I will only accept communications if they come from near.org and nowhere else. So all is public, therefore the API key is public, but this API key cannot be used outside of near, and in this case can be only used for one thing. So you have to be just very careful that the API key is restricted enough such that you know that it cannot be abused publicly. So that's first question of Mustafa. Second question of Matthias was about gateways. Please let me know if we need to clarify anything. The third one is, can you show an example of an iframe? I know that in the documentation was, let me see, building components, BOS API, there's a part here about iframes, using iframes here. And let's see if it works. I have not created nor tested this one. So let's see. We paste it here and we render the preview, and there you go. So this one works. So I will recommend you to actually go and check this example and check the documentation of it on docs.near.org. Now, next question is, does the blockchain operating system have support for TypeScript? Not yet. It's in the making, but it will take a while. So not right now. Maybe in the future, in the short future. Can you talk about near consensus and why I should choose to build on near over other blockchains who claim the same thing? You don't need to choose to build on near or not. You can actually build on Ethereum if you want, and then after building on Ethereum, you can just come and import your widget here. Something that will be nice about that is that so this is something that I didn't show, but if your application runs in only one blockchain, it's still useful, right? Because if you are thinking about porting it into another blockchain, you will just have, like one configuration to be done. If later you want to port it into even more blockchains, you will have to change nothing from your front end. Your front end will be by default decentralized. And also you can leverage other components, because that's also an important part, right? Like you can host decentralized front ends on other places. We are very aware of this. And actually some of the data that we use, it's even stored in IPFS. It's like the more blockchains, the merrier. We are actually very much into multi-blockchain from the near perspective. But again, something that is very nice is that while you're trying to build something, if suddenly now you want to add like a discussions panel, then it's very nice because you can just compose it in 2 lines of code, right? And save you a lot of headaches of compiling things and etc. So again, there are a lot of components that you can use, and also most probably something that you want to do, maybe there's a component already for it. And yeah, so that will be a couple of reasons of why you could use Near instead of others, though use all of them if you want, and even more, don't use blockchain if you don't need. We're very much into not using blockchain when it is not necessary, such as keeping data, I don't know, maybe behind, in your server because you don't want your users to something. Will you recommend? So the next question is from Tony. Will you recommend just using Aurora if I'm more used to Solidity EVM? Yeah, completely. The main difference will be just that. So Aurora is going to be useful for you to deploy a smart contract. And then as you saw here, I was not building any smart contract or anything. I was just making the front end part of it. So you can communicate, you can build your smart contract and deploy it there, and then just use the EVM on top of it. Is there a good Oracle on Near? Is the next question that I'm reading. And actually, if you go to docs.near, I would just know docs.near.org. And here you go to develop and you go to finance. There's a whole section on oracles. So you can choose one of those. Can we use Web2 API service? I already replied that one. I see Mustafa. Sarah, what VSC do you recommend? What will be a VSC? What VS? I don't know. Sarah, could you clarify what it's a VSC? So the next one is from Matthias. Where is the JSX code actually stored? On chain. Indeed, it is on chain. If you check, actually, look, I have this transaction here. That's very nice. If you see, I'm actually calling the function set on the smart contract social.near. And what I'm saving is that data. So that means that this data, literally the code, as you see it, return /n, blah, 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 h1, hello, blah, 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 /n, I hope you're having a great day. That is literally going to be stored inside of social.near. What's the economics of BOS-based dApps in terms of fee? Is it comparable with more traditional approach? So right now, if someone uses your application, there's no fee or nothing that I know. So if someone uses your smart contract in Near, there is a fee that goes into your smart contract. There's a 30% fee that goes. 30% of the burn gas goes into your smart contract. That's an incentive for developers. But on the BOS, I am not aware that we have any sort of economical incentive if someone uses your front end. What front end languages do you recommend using? So here it's going to be JSX, and that's basically it. So it's going to be JavaScript. Now I'm going to go scroll all the way back to the top. I see there's a question from Mustafa. Could you tell about storage? How we use it on BOS? Great question. So actually, as you can see, whenever you're storing code, you will have to add a little bit of Near, because this whole string is going to be occupying space in the smart contract. And since it occupies space, you will have to basically give some money to cover for that storage. This is also a way to avoid people just like completely filling the storage with nonsense. So and that's it. Like every time you deploy, every time you save a component, you will have to pay. But something that is important to say is that after you modify the component, if now your component, I opened so many things. Let's see if we can find. Let's go back to near.org. So for publishing, develop sandbox here. So for publishing, this one I had to pay a little bit, right? But if I modify it and I remove stuff, so let's remove all of these. Does it still work? No. No. Does it work? Yes. And if I publish it, I don't need to pay now. I don't need to pay again because I already pay for the storage. So you pay just the first time to publish it, and then of course if the code grows a lot, we're gonna ask you to pay a little fee again. But it's always in like in the millicents of near, so should not be a huge problem. Related gateways. Why will someone want to run their own gateway aside from just customizing the UI? Well, something else that you can do is, well, it's a whole React application, right? So maybe you want to also incorporate your backend. Now, whenever your user signs in, you also synchronize with your backend and bring more information about that user that you have on your backend. Maybe like you want to make something way more complex, and sure, the UI could be different, but you want to incorporate other systems. Maybe you want to add a login with Google, right? Maybe you want to add a login with Facebook button and try and make that the interaction with the Web3. So that could be possible because again, it's the gateway. I don't like the name gateway that much, but so the gateway is just a React application, and a React application that allows you to take your code and render a component. The gateway is just, so that React application has a part that knows how to say, take this from the blockchain and render it into something that people can see, such as this, right? Like, or better, like take this from the blockchain and render it into that. And then around that, you can do whatever you want in your React application. So yes, that will be the long answer. Then again, question from Matthias. No TypeScript? Then I guess Rust Leptos is not being think of, right? Well, so the thing is that actually, if you think about it, this is a piece of code that now is just a string that lives on the blockchain, and it has to be transformed into a component or like something that is a rendering in your website, right? Or in your application. And the fastest and like a simple way to go is with React, because it allows you to do this very simply, like take something and render it in real time. If we will want to implement Rust, I don't know how we could do it. Maybe you will need an interpreter of Rust running on your browser that takes that Rust code and renders it. So yeah, so far we don't have it, and I don't know if we're gonna have it in the future. Now we have this one. What front-end language do you recommend using? That was already. Are there any examples of real-life applications that use BOS? Yeah, literally near.org. Near.org is all built on BOS. And then I think that also the people of Sweatcoin is, if they're not there, they're migrating. Sweatcoin, Healthier Planet. So I don't remember if this is built on the BOS or they're migrating it, but it's on the making. And I can ask around, maybe someone else remembers any other application. But yeah, the main one will be right now near.org. You have BOSGG that was built for consensus, and I'm working on another one, but it's not implemented here yet, which is about like building communities. So yeah. And I think that those are all the questions. Well, I mean, Gus just asked, there is a context.account ID prop that I don't see documented in the BOS docs. Well, let me give you the short explanation. If I do put here context.account ID, it will say dev/support.near, because that's the account ID that is logged. And that's a nice way to know if the user is logged. If context account ID, then the user is logged. So therefore, if not context account, you can put return is login to use this application, right? And if I actually publish it and I save, let me now show you how this works. Because now if I just run, like, let me open the component, you would say this is my page, dev support/near. And if I now log out, it says please log in to use this application. So it's literally that. It's just like the account ID of the person that is logged. How can I calculate the cost of running, storing a full website in the BOS? That's a great question. I don't think we have any sort of tool to compute it, but the computation will be number of characters multiplied by, so a character is just 1 byte, right? And then the cost of storage in near is somewhere in our documentation. So if we go to docs.near.org, and now I search for storage. Let me see if I find it. Unchanged data storage constraints. There's somewhere where, here. It's 1 year per 100 kilobytes. So basically, it's the amount of code that you have, transform it into kilobytes, and every 100 kilobytes is going to be 1 year. And that answers Armando Medina and Gus. And let me see if there's anything else that I did not answer yet. We have 3 minutes left, right? So we still have 3 minutes if anyone has a burning question.
Yes, I think Armando's put something in the chat. But otherwise, I mean, we can use the 3 minutes to wrap up as well. No pressure on anyone. Yeah, thank you so much for the in-depth questions and just answering everything and just giving us such a comprehensive view. Armando has just quickly asked 100 kilobytes
for 1 year in what time span? I don't really understand the question, but generally it's like while you are storing them there. So when you store data in near, you have to pay for that storage up front, right? So if you want to store 100 kilobytes, you have to pay 1 year at the same time that you're storing the data, or you can also pay it before. But also, it's important to know that whenever you then remove data, like if you start removing code from your application, or if you just, there are parts that don't matter anymore, you remove them, then you can get the money back. But yeah, so you pay upfront. So as long as you're storing it, you are paying for the storage.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone who's come and participated and engaged and put all of your questions in the chat. It's been really, really lovely. Thank you so much, Guillermo, for your time, and the rest of the Near team as well, Josh, Ben, who are in the chat as support. Cool. So I guess that's pretty much everything for today. Everyone who's still here, just watch out for the next session in your calendar. I believe this should be on Monday. So please do come along for that as well. And as this is the last session of the week, I will be sending around a little summary email of what we've done. Cool. Thank you all so, so much. And I will end the session there. Thank you so much, Guillermo.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cool.